Hi, welcome to podcast 3 of the Black Celts. Just want to do a quick podcast here to test sound levels as well, because sound levels on the last one were a bit low. I had some microphone problems, so I want to try and get it a bit better. So I thought I'd do a quick podcast. And this podcast is called Nothing to See Here. Okay. Now, it's a little dig at science. And I'm a trained scientist, so I think I have a right to have a dig at science. But the science of really when people were looking for the origins of the people of the Western Europe, for example, and the British Isles, obviously they started off with skeletons. And, in the 1800s, you have the Phoenix Park skull, you have, a lot of the Neolithic skulls are being found, etc. And people generally think that they are the Neolithic period, and they think they probably belong to a darker race, etc. That's what they would write in the 1800s. And then they made the presumption that the Bronze Age came in with some really broad skulls, and they presumed that was coming from Central Europe. Well, in reality, there was a lot coming from South Spain as well. And then you have the Iron Age, where everybody presumes that these are the Celts. So that sort of model had sort of stayed in place. And then when you had some real comparisons, as I mentioned previously by Morant, he looked at lots of different series. Now, I mentioned that you had the group C, which is the Gaunches, Etruscans, Pompeians, the Copts. And don't forget, Etruscans were regarded in the past as probably being from Libya. A lot of people thought that they were from there, and some people thought they were from Anatolia. But regardless of that, they are quite exotic for this group to be compared to British Isles, so-called Celts. Now, the Iron Age Britain, when we compared it to Group A, B, C, D, and E, okay, and I think some of the groups, I can't remember offhand, but you had some of the groups like D and E, you had like Slavic group, Southeast European group, etc. And so what you had was, out of all those comparisons, out of I think 5-6 groups across Europe, Iron Age was definitely, according to Morant, Iron Age Britain fitted very much with Canary Islands, the Copts, Libyans, Pompeians, and Southern European people. So again, I think my conspiracy theory is that that's why they really stopped looking at skeletons. And it wasn't because of morality, because don't forget, you got thousands of skeletons in the British Museum and in museums across Europe. Thousands and thousands and thousands. And some of them you can put names to. Some of them are actually, people's relatives, Australian Aborigines, Africa, etc., Native America, people that just, they were grave robbers. Let's be honest about it, grave robbers. There was no morality. And you don't need to go into the last Tasmanians either, where that was their graves were desecrated. But again, they gave up the desire to find any kind of Aryan skeletons or proof of that, because they really kept coming back to Middle East and Africa. So they got onto a new thing called blood groups, and they said, yippee, let's do blood groups. And they looked at blood groups, and they analyzed the blood groups across Europe and across the world, the population after population. And you had this thing called the blood transfusion people. That's where in emergencies there's a blood blank. And they found that the town of Abergele, North Wales, had a high concentration of E1B1. And that didn't go well with the theory of the Celts. And they also found that the blood group of the Welsh, Scots, Irish, northern people of England was high concentration of blood group O. So again, it was like, and also they found the link with the Nile Valley, the Caucasus Mountains. Again, the Colchians seem to pop up again, Sahara, etc. So the same frequencies then. So blood group really got sort of left behind. I can imagine the scientists in Cambridge going, nothing to see here, let's forget that one. So then again, you come across another invention called DNA analysis. And then they do the DNA analysis. They expect to find some kind of link with Central Europe. And again, no, you don't. You find that R1b is on the fringes of Western Europe, and then you have the older R1b, which is in Sardinia and in Hausa land, etc., etc. So again, scientists wringing their hands saying, nothing to see here, Next. And so the new thing now is strontium isotope analysis. And so you can tell if somebody, came from a warmer climate from the bones, because the strontium isotopes, you're looking at the presence of those, and they're found in the foods and different, they're laid down. It's during the growth period of people. And to their amazement, they found people in Winchester, in Iron Age, people in West Wales, people in Northeast England, across the board, high percentage of people had spent their childhood in warmer climes. And then you look at the data, it's, and probably the Nile Valley, so it's interesting. Or probably Tunisia, that's another example that actually from the so-called published scientific data. So what I'm saying here is that every sort of method that's used points to the same place. Warmer climes, migration, people moving from Africa into Europe and back again across the Mediterranean, east and west, etc. People trading, you have trade goods from Egypt arriving in the west of Isle. This is natural. People did move about. People were able to trade. They didn't have to have, Columbus discover them or Captain Cook or anything. Thousands of years before, people were trading vast distances. So again, I'm going to call this podcast Nothing to See Here. Every time scientists find things that don't agree with their hierarchical belief system, they turn around and say, nothing to see here. Let's try and find the next set of evidence. I think one thing I forgot was also linguistic data. That came after the skeletons. So they wanted to find out that you'd have this, so-called Indo-European language group that they made up. And then they found that Irish deviated from that group constantly and then matched up directly with Canaanite. And then they say, nothing to see here, let's forget that. So, still a quick podcast called Nothing to See Here. All right, check in another time.